Today, we're going to be talking about a story that I'm sure you may have heard in children's church. The story I'm talking about is the book of Jonah.
All I remember seeing the little cartoons about him being in a well and all that. I never know the context or nothing about that. But there's a lot more involved in that.
I remember the story a bit differently than what it is when you actually read it in the Bible. It's not a random story that was just put in the Bible just for entertainment. Understand that every single book, every single verse has something for you, important for you to understand while you're here on this earth. What is up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Today for Tomorrow podcast. What's up, Rod?
What's
How you doing?
up, Martell? Look, it's me and you again, Mike. Mike is out changing the world.
Changing the world. Changing the world.
Yeah, but he's with us in spirit, though. But anyway.
Today, we're going to be talking about a story that I'm sure you may have heard in children's church. It's one that I definitely did. And I remember the story a bit differently than what it is when you actually read it in the Bible. The story I'm talking about is the book of Jonah. And so Jonah, from my children's church, Rodney, you let me know how you got it. But my memories of Jonah is, okay, he's swallowed up by a whale. He's essentially in this whale because for one reason or another, God is upset with this man. And so he ends up in the belly of this whale, and then God lets him out, so the whale spits him out. In children's, that's all I got from children's church. Me reading it, it's a different story. What did you grab, or how did you understand it?
So you, as a child, you understood it better than I did. All I remember seeing the little cartoons about him being in a well and all that. I never know the context or nothing about that. But let's fast forward to adulthood and actually reading the story. So, yes, all that stuff happened. However, well, it wasn't a whale, by the way. It was a big fish.
Wasn't a whale.
They didn't say.
Yeah.
That's number one. But, the reality, though, when you look at the story of Jonah, God came to Jonah to do a mission, to go speak to the people in Nineveh. Now, the piece that gets missed a lot is that Jonah didn't want to do the job. And
Right.
Jonah didn't want to do it because these were the enemies of the Israelites. They were horrible people. And Jonah knew. He's like, man, if I go do what God tell me to do, he might forgive them and they won't get punished. And he didn't want that to happen. So what did he do? When we don't want to do what God tell us to do, what we do, we run. So he got on a boat, went the opposite direction. Guess what? God came. He got thrown overboard, put in a well, spit up, and then he had another opportunity to do what God told him to do after he got put in the belly of the beast. Now, I can say more, but I'll save it for our discussion. But there's a lot more involved in that. But he wound up speaking to the people, and he wound up, and God wound up, the people wound up listening to what God had to say, and God, repented or relented and did not punish that evil group of people because they did come and they, listen to the message. But Jonah was still not happy.
This is definitely one of those episodes. If you haven't caught it already, get your Bible out. This is one of those.
Yes.
So it's one of those books in the Bible that it's short. It's really short. And you often, well, in my experience going to church, they don't often make a lot of references to it. Like you don't often hear, all right, let's turn to Jonah 1 for X, Y, and Z. And so it's like one of those that it can be forgotten, but when you go into it, it's like so much value in it that it's like you have to get it for yourself. And it's a short read. It's just what, four chapters in it?
Yeah.
4 chapters in it. But so like me, when I went back through this book of Jonah, obviously it took a whole new life after you read the full thing and you understand a bit more about it. One thing that I thought was interesting, and also too, please, if you're listening to this, understand that when we're talking about Jonah, we're not talking just about Jonah. We're talking about you. We're talking about
Us.
society.
Yes.
We're right. We're talking about us, like for real. Like this is God didn't just put this random story. It's not a random story that was just put in the Bible just for entertainment. Understand that every single book, every single verse has something for you, important for you to understand while you're here on this earth. And so this book is no exception to that. It's
We
100% value packed. Now, going back a little bit to the beginning of this. So Rodney did an amazing job of outlining like the step by step of what happens in this story. And again, that's even more context than what I got as a kid. I know what I learned was about the whale. That wasn't a whale. That's it. And so, but going back to the beginning, he was running away from his call. He was running away from what he was supposed to do. So Jonah is a prophet. His job is to be going to places and telling them what God wants them to know. That's his whole job. You know how people say you only have one job. He only had one job. That's what he was supposed to do. But what I thought was crazy interesting was when he was so in the middle of this running away. Now, first verse. Now the word of the Lord came unto Jonah, the son of Amittai, saying, verse 2, arise, go to Nineveh, that great city, and cry against it, for their wickedness is come up before me. So it establishes right here what he's supposed to be doing. So he's supposed to go here, tell these people about the stuff that they've been doing, because now the smoke had done came all the way up to heaven, and something about to go down. Okay, the Lord is saying this, and so as a good prophet, he's supposed to go there and tell these people. Now, what he did instead, this is where the story. This is what actually causes the rest of the story, because he didn't just go straight to the place. Now, if we just pause right there. Now, I don't know about the prayer life of everybody, but if you pray and God speaks to you, then we all know that we're here for a reason. We all know that there are certain things that we are supposed to do in this life. And I know that there's a lot of people who run away from the thing that they're called to do for whatever the reason is. And I mean, if we're going to first just address that, I think first off, there's no, and we've talked about this before, success in life, it's not defined by what the world says. It's not defined by, how you feel. It's defined by if the purpose of a thing is being fulfilled. That's the only way to be successful in life. And so if God gave you the purpose because he created you, then you cannot be successful without knowing what he wants you to do and doing it. And so, and in that, everything that you need provided for. You can seek ye first the kingdom and his righteousness, and everything is going to be added unto you. All of the promises, look, everything is right there in alignment with just being obedient to the call. And so even when it seems like scary, even when it seems like something that might be uncomfortable, unfamiliar, even when you feel like you don't have any sort of experience in doing the thing, God has in that, when you just take that step, we call it faith. When you just take that step, God allows you to actually be supplied everything that you need to take the next one and the next one and the next one and the next one. Now, in Jonah's case right here, Jonah knew his assignment. Jonah knew his assignment. And he was equipped because he had been doing it already. Like this wasn't like the first time. I mean, he was called already. But he was upset. He didn't want to do this thing because he didn't want he knew the God that he serves. He's like, these people, come on, you want me to go to these people? How many of us?
Well, let's stop there for a minute, Martell. Think about it, and I want, like we said, this is for us, right? And you just laid out a question. I want to make sure people pick up what you put down. So it wasn't just that he didn't like the people. That was one big part of it. But what you alluding to though, and what Jonah knew is that God had the power to forgive him.
Yep.
If he didn't think
Bingo.
God was going to forgive him, if he didn't think that God was going to potentially let them off the hook, he would have did it and been like, they're going to get punished anyway. But he did not want God to save him. How twisted is that? But that's how the human, hey, when we don't want something, we want our enemy punished.
It's such a human thing because when somebody does something to us, we want consequences.
Yeah.
Somebody get that man, put him in jail.
Yeah.
We're like, he robbed. They've done so many crimes. Go get him.
Mm.
But when God says, I need you to go talk to them. I need you to be a friend to that person who, yeah, they took your lunch money last week, but I need you to sit next to them in the lunchroom next week. Like that's when that's when your faith is really tested.
Yes. Yes. That's when you know who you serving. Are you serving
Right.
yourself? Are you serving God? So go ahead, Martell. I just want to make sure we gave that some meat so people kind of not just keep it in the Bible, but put it in their own real world.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, it's a tough thing to do, but it's like Rodney, like what you just said, it's like, who are you actually serving here? Is it you or is it God? Because if it's God, then that whole you side has to just, you need to put that to the side.
And going back to what you said before, success, because your definition of success was right on point. When you are fulfilling the purpose that God's given you, you are successful. Okay. But when you're fulfilling what you want to do, then you have worldly success or, which is fleeting, right? So anyways,
We didn't create us.
No, we did. So let's get back. So we got this man on the run, trying to get away from what God's called him to do. One other aspect that you might hit is that when he got on the ship to get away from what God wanted to do, a storm came. And he sleep. And the other people, they trying to throw stuff off the side. They trying to say to themselves, hey, man, wake up. What's up with you? Everybody's, and get this too, everybody's calling on their God. And then they say, hey, you need to call on your God. And just to put in context, it was a lot of worshiping of multiple gods in this case. Jonah knew the real God, but they said, hey, you need to call on your God. So Jonah get up, he know the reason. He admits the reason. He know that God is upset, but he put everybody else on that boat in danger because he ran from what he was supposed to do for God.
And the interesting thing I thought about when I was reading that part is just the fact that it was like there's so many things throughout the story, but in this part in particular, it was clear that everybody, at least to a certain extent, they're like, we believe in something, okay? We believe in something. And everybody pray to what you believe in so that this thing can stop, because we know that the power isn't in our hands right here, okay? So everybody get in your prayer corner and we gonna get this thing. One of these guys is gonna help us out today. And they cast the lots and everything. They figured out, okay, this man right here over here snoozing, you haven't done what you're supposed to do, and we believe that it's because of you that this whole thing is happening. So what we're hearing now is there's a consequence. There's consequences not just for Jonah, but on the people that are around Jonah, because he wasn't doing what he was called to do. And now hold on, put a pin in that one real quick. But the thing is, Jonah at this particular moment in time, he's over here chilling because he knows good and well. He knows good and well what God told him to do. And we all, like, God ain't keeping the secret about your purpose. Like,
No.
ask. And so he was avoiding it. And then this was the odd thing was what happened next is because it's like they got to a place where they were like, look, please, just if we could do something about that. We know it's him. Like, we're not a part of whatever he didn't do or whatever he did. Can we not end up in the situation because of it?
Yeah.
And so they started to turn to the God of Jonah, because they like, whoa, wait a minute. Like, can we fix, like, I see that you have more power than our gods that we just tried to pray to.
Yeah.
And so Jonah, he was in rebellion so much that he was even willing to say, look, cast me over the side so that y'all don't get hurt. Let me go.
Yeah.
Let me go. And so this man is willing to, I guess it's not necessarily suicide because they would be throwing him overboard, but he was willing to just say, look, my life, I'm not even concerned about it. Throw me off the side of this thing and we'll figure the rest out. But just so that y'all ain't worried, just let me go.
But man, hear that out though. Let's think about that for a minute. He hated this group so much. He did not want them blessed so much. It wasn't like, oh, okay, let me go back. No, I was like, no, to your point, throw me overboard. I'll die. I'll die before I go do that. I'll die before I go do that. I'd rather just throw me overboard. Because it's a storm. I mean, you know, we can't get in Jonah's head, but you got to think that he ain't going to swim to safety.
No.
You know what I'm saying?
We know he ain't got no plans of, oh, I'm an Olympic swimmer. I'm gonna make it to short.
Yeah.
No. Homie knew what was gonna happen if he ended up in that water.
Exactly. So, man, can you imagine? I mean, look, and once again, we got to self-reflect. You know, we can be so stubborn and taken in by hate and anger to the point where we rather just throw in the towel and die before we actually go and help someone who we got a deep issue with.
Unforgiveness.
Boom. There you go. Unforgiveness. That's the root of it. Yep. So look, now, man, we haven't got halfway through the story yet. But
My goodness.
Yeah, we got it. So, okay, he overboard now. All right. And God brings a big fish.
Yep.
Puts him in the belly of the beast. Go ahead, Martell.
Mercy.
Go ahead, break it down.
So we see God's mercy right here because when Jonah was on the boat, God didn't say, all right, you decided that you was not going to do what I told you to do. Lightning, boom, let's just go ahead and wrap you up and go to the next. He didn't do that. He sent the storm. There was an opportunity in that because those other people who were on the ship, they're thinking about the God of Jonah. Now they're trying to figure this out more. So throw me to the side, throw me into the water. You know what, just so that y'all can be all right, throw me off. He gets thrown off. Now we see another sign of mercy because God didn't just let him drown. He could have just said, yeah, throw him overboard and that's it. He's just going to drown and die. Good. Nope, no problem. But instead, he was like, all right, let me give him another shot here. And now this is a very unconventional shot. I don't recommend going for this. But he said a big fish to come and swallow this man up. And then now Jonah's in a different situation where he's feeling it now. Okay, he's like, you know what? Death might not be the option for me, and especially not in this way, because I'm still alive in this belly. And so he starts to pray. And so Jonah has a phenomenal prayer. I mean, the dude's prayer game is solid, strong one. And so he essentially, because God heard him and because God already was having mercy on him, and then he received that by, praying to God, God ended up having the fish spit him back out onto the land. And of course, the land is going to be perfect position to where he can get to where he needs to go. Wonderful transportation. Wonderful transportation. And so he's still kind of grudging about the whole situation, but because of his prayer, because of, the whole situation, okay, he didn't let me die. So let me go ahead and I guess do what he wanted me to do. When he goes into the place, he gives them like a one-liner to kind of give that, like, look, this is what God said, whatever. But he doesn't go into any detail. He doesn't say like, oh, God told me that this is going to happen to you at this timeline. He just says, look, hey, this is what's going to happen. Cool. And the people in Nineveh, they end up getting, of course, as he didn't want he didn't want to happen. Jonah didn't want this to happen. They listen to the man. They say, oh my goodness, we need to do something. The king, we're going to do a corporate fast. whatever, we cannot let what is about to happen. So we need to pray, we need to fast, we need to stop what we're doing, and we need to change directions. We need to rethink this whole thing that we doing in life. And then, of course, another sign of God's mercy comes in. Like, hey, look, y'all don't have to all die.
No, nope, nope.
But you know who's still upset?
Jonah
Jonah.
still mad. And
Salty.
yeah, literally salty. And I think, you know, as you talked about him praying when he's in the well and that grace that you talked about, Jonah woke up like, boom, this is guy. Okay, he's talking to me. Let me get this straight, you know. So Jonah repented. He's like, okay, I
Mhm.
need to follow God, to your point. And Jonah went and did it. And granted, it took him, man, I mean, because Nineveh was about 120,000 people. It took 3 days for him to go
It's not a
get the
small
message.
place.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
not. And like you just said, they listen. Now, let's think about that for a minute. Here is an ungodly people,
Mhm.
a horrible group of folks, if we want to talk about it, because they did treacherous things. They were evil. Jonah didn't dislike them for no reason. Don't get me wrong. You know, and here's a people, a godless people who listened and said, you know what? We need to change. You know, that just kind of blow me away. It gives me hope in the respect of this because we run into people sometime and they can look like the most godless people that we ever seen. But sometimes God would talk to us to talk to them, or have us to the point about that person who's snatching your lunch money. You know, why is God telling me to help this individual with his math? Why is God telling me to assist this individual? And this is the same person who beat me up the other day. You know what I mean? You don't know. You don't know. They could hear God through you and change their life.
That's why it's so interesting because like these people, like you look at who they are, like why, okay, why? You know, why these people specifically? These people were against God's people. They came against God's people. And so, you know, Jonah understanding this, knowing the history, knowing what they do regularly, he's like, how? How can we? How can I help these people in this
Mm.
situation? Let them die.
Yes.
Well, like, why we gotta do that? And then, so, like, again, thinking of it as a person, I hope that you always put yourself in the context of these people inside of the Bible because I feel like a lot of times we can read a story and we can think, oh, I'm better than that. Oh, I wouldn't do that. Oh, yeah, that wouldn't be me. But it's like so many times it's like, no, no, no. If you really, let's just say you had been through 400 years of being a slave or 300 and 398 years of being a slave, right?
Mm.
Generation after generation after generation. And then God tells you, you need to go over here to this country and you need to talk to this person right here and tell them what I'm telling you so that they can
Mhm.
be forgiven and your people go free. So that they can be forgiven. Now, how many of us, if you know your mama was killed by these people, well, actually, your half brother came from these people. You know that
Mhm.
your whole family was enslaved by these people for the last 20 generations, and y'all ain't never even knew freedom at all because of this group of individuals. And then God tells you to go to these people because you know that your God is going to forgive them.
Hmm.
That's a hard
That's hard.
decision.
It's a hard pill. That's a hard pill, but that's what's putting that whole thought process puts us where Jonah is. So we can't be harsh on Jonah. We gotta understand his mindset, right?
No.
And after and you said it, okay, that was when Jonah did that, and they repented, and God forgave them. Now, the thing about it, just to be clear about the Ninevites, so everybody know, yeah, God didn't judge him. He pulled back his judgment on him at that point, but he judged him later. So the story not over, but it's like for this moment it's over. But they didn't stop being who they were as a people. So, But the point though is Jonah though. Let's focus on him, and I think that's the point we're talking about here because that Jonah, that's us. We gotta watch out that we don't become Jonah because Jonah did what God told him to do. The blessing came from it for the Ninevites, but Jonah still was salty. He still was upset. He was mad. He was still mad about it. And that's the posture where we gotta make sure we don't put ourselves in. After we reluctantly do what God tell us to do, and then watch the individuals get blessed that we really didn't want to get blessed, and then we still hating.
The thing that's interesting about me about the end of the story after he goes, does what he's supposed to do hesitantly. He did it, but he did it, he probably would have done more in a different context, but he went and did it, came out, and he was under this tree, right? God let this tree grow. It had some shade over it so that he wasn't getting burned by the sunlight. He also caused this worm to come up and eat the leaves on this tree. And so the sunlight ends up hitting him still. And so now he's burning. And then God speaks to the man and then tells him something that's absolutely beautiful. Let me go straight to it. We're going to Jonah 9 and 10. But God said to Jonah, "Is it right for you to be angry about the plant? Is it?" He said, "And I'm so angry, I wish I were dead." But the Lord said, "You have been concerned about this plant, though you did not tend it or make it grow. It sprang up overnight and died overnight." And so he was essentially saying to Jonah, like, look, homie, you didn't make this thing. You weren't the reason why it grew. It benefited you while it was alive, while it was flourishing, while it was giving you shade, it flourished, right? And everything was great for you. But you didn't actually do anything that actually made that happen. And so when it died, you also didn't do anything for it to die. You just so happened to benefit because I was doing everything, because I had control of the situation. And so you're upset right now about this tree, but just like those people, I made them. I told you to do your job in this. And so whether they die or not, that's not up to you. You just need to do what I told you to do, what I created you to do. And so again, just like the Job situation, God essentially says, look, I'm the one in control here. And because of that, you got to understand what your role is in this bigger picture.
Yeah, and I think even in Job's a good example of responding to God the right way after being chastised. And when you say that, God, I look at it like God, like, look, I know more than you. Okay, he's just kind of like he's dropping it down. Like, look, I'm God. Understand? I created, like you said, yeah, I created everything. I know what needs to happen and don't need to happen. So, you questioning me is out of line. Pretty much, you questioning me is out of line. You know, my thing is that if you do what I instruct you to do, going back to that word success again, you will be successful. If you don't, then you will not be successful and you will not prosper. But when I created everything, I nurtured that plant just like he nurtured those individuals and then he created every last being. Okay. And when he determines it's time, it's time. Who knows? Though that story of the Ninevites converting and actually believing and repenting and going back, we don't know. I mean, it feeds us today, but what did it do during that time? Did it create a whole nother group of believers that we don't know anything about?
Mhm.
We don't.
And the thing is, it's so interesting because it's like, yeah, Jonah, them, them, them doing that corporate fast. What we don't have is the story of, like, to your point, the individuals who decided to just become believers. We don't have the story of how that person was then, now they could hear from God and God told them their assignment. And then they started to get on the mission that God sent them. All Jonah has is what God told him. That's it. And now he can assume what God's going to do because of that. You know, if he does his role, he's assuming what's going to happen next. But it's like, because we don't see the bigger picture, because we can't see how all of the pieces are interacting in the full story, it's like, for us to all of a sudden put ourselves in the role of God and say, this should not happen, that's not our place.
No, it's not. It's not. And I think, I love the fact we walked through this story, but now here comes the difficult part for us, is how do we sum this up? I think it's there already. But, and I think you started out, hey, look, we're talking about Jonah, but we also talking about us people, human nature, the world right now, what's going on. So how do we kind of summarize this and make sure that, what we're talking about here can help feed people, help give them hope too, I guess, as it relates to dealing with these difficult situations and dealing with unforgiveness and dealing with some of these other things that stop us from doing what God has called us to do in others' lives sometimes.
I would say an answer that most people probably don't want to hear. And it's essentially, we got to remember that God is the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords. Top. And if you claim to be a Christian, if you claim to be a follower of Christ, if you claim to be about this life, then what the King of Kings says is law. That's it. There's nothing else. And as soon as we decide that we're going to make variations to it, where we're going to make an alternative plan to it, when we're going to decide, I might do that later, or that's cool, but I think I should do it this way instead of the way that you've told me to do it. We have then removed God from God position and moved ourselves to God position, which automatically will equal out to problems.
Yes, guaranteed.
Every time.
Guaranteed.
So stop. No matter how you feel, no matter what you want, no matter what they said, no matter what you read in this article, if God said it, that's it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Do that.
Facts.
Because you might not end up in the mouth of a fish. You might just drown.
Yeah. There's no guarantee God gonna rescue you like he did Jonah. You just might get thrown overboard. What you're saying?
You might just get thrown overboard.
Hey, I think that's as real as it get right there, Martell. That's facts.
Man, I'm trying to tell you. So I would also read the whole story for yourself. Please don't take my word for it. That's for sure. Go read it for yourself. Find out because what's going to happen is the Holy Spirit is going to speak to you through the story as well.
Mm-hmm.
Some things are going to be highlighted for you. You're gonna get a complete. It's going to take on a whole new life in your mind and in your life, because you'll have your own life story and you'll have the story of Jonah. And so the Holy Spirit will be able to speak to you and through you so that you can do what you're called to do as well. So definitely go read it for yourself. It's only 4 chapters. It's short. It's not a long book.
Mm-hmm.
So that's my endorsement for the book of Jonah.
And I will second that endorsement.
So wrapping up here, let's get some housekeeping items. What you got?
Well, hey, look, want to make sure to invite everybody out. Come check us out for Sunday service at 11:30 a.m. If you're in Southfield, Metro Detroit area, you can come on at 28202 Franklin Road, Freedom in Christ Ministry. We have service every Sunday at 11:30. And I want to invite you to our Man 2.0, which is actually every second Saturday of the month, starts at 10 a.m. Come on out, check out, hang out with some men. It's iron sharpen iron. We're growing together in the word, but we're growing together to understand what our purpose is based on how God has designed us.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Hey, if you're on this podcast and you made it to this point in time and you have not subscribed yet, do that. Definitely just press that subscribe button. It'd be helpful to the channel. But also, too, what I'm going to ask you as well, this is going to sound crazy, but if you thought there was any sort of value or this episode helps you in any way to understand the Bible or to make it more contextual to your life, share it with somebody else, someone who you think could probably gain something from understanding this in a different way or a new way. And so that button is also easy. It's around the same kind of vicinity as the subscribe button. So just press that, send it to them, and we will be appreciative that you have. And feel free to leave a comment. We'd love to hear from you. So thank you for tuning in to this episode of the Today for Tomorrow podcast. And we hope to see you next week.
Peace.
Peace.